Welcome to the Seeing Red podcast with Andy Turner and Garrett Fools, checking up on Texas policies and politics with some federal issues thrown in, like the assault weapons ban, interest rate hikes, you get it, but it's mostly Texas, since we can't ignore the big stuff either. And now, here are your hosts, Andy Turner and Garrett Fools.
Hey everybody, welcome back to this week's episode of Seeing Red. We're glad to have you, and we so appreciate you joining us. I'm Andy Turner, and with Garrett Fools, we hope to be covering whatever you're talking about in Texas news. We have new episodes that drop every Wednesday morning with 2 new topics every week. Don't forget, you can reach out to us with any comments on existing episodes or suggestions for what you'd like to hear about at seeingredpodcast.com or via email at hosts@seeingredpodcast.com. I promise you'll get a personal response and not some automated responder. We love hearing from you all, so keep those notes coming. We've integrated a lot of what you guys have suggested, and we appreciate it. You can follow us on social media on Twitter at the Seeing Red Pod, and on Facebook at facebook.com/the Seeing Red Pod. As always, we'd like to thank our fabulous producer, the Zipmeister, for helping us put the show together and getting it out there for you to enjoy. All that said, on with the show.
We're so excited that y'all are back with us this week. We are in the midst of the trial of the century, the political tsunami that is hitting Texas right now, which is the Ken Paxton impeachment trial. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of testimony so far. Honestly, we might be done with testimony. We'll probably be done with testimony by the end of the week, but there are prognostications that the thing that's going to keep this trial time moving is the deliberations are going to take a while because there's 20 different counts to go over. Andy, I was out last week on a ship in the North Pacific. I was traveling between Vancouver and Juneau and back. Gotten to see glaciers and seals and whales, different types of whales. Had a great time. Had an amazing time with my wife. Just really cooling off and getting ready for this new season. So I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit about your thoughts, because I was seeing some stuff, a lot of stuff over Twitter. I got to watch the first day because I bought the Wi-Fi for that day. But what were your thoughts last week watching the trial every day and kind of getting a feel for stuff?
It is really an interesting thing as a human observer, as someone who loves the law. And of course, you guys all know I'm not a lawyer, but I do love the law and legislation. And this has been my, career for quite a while. So it's been really interesting. The first day, my first thought was Paxton's team is come across as very angry, very pushy, and my first thought was, it's really not a good idea to play that strategy because the senators aren't going to like it. The House managers are cool, calm, and collected, and yes, Mr. President, no, Mr. President, and they treat their whether it's their witnesses or they treat them all with respect. And even when they get ruled against, like, the defense, Paxton's team objects to something, they're still respectful and kind. And the House managers' lawyers are respectful and kind. And and then it was interesting because the second day, Mr. Busby was not there, and out of nowhere, like you'd think he'd be off doing something. I don't know, working on his mayoral race or something.
City council. He's running for city council.
City council, my fault. Thank you. The only thing I saw come out from him individually was a complaint that the media had changed the tone of his skin. And my thought was, with everything going on right now, that's what you have to say? And it turns out, no, it wasn't the media. It wasn't the mainstream media. It was a bunch of board staffers.
I don't even think it was the staffers had done anything, right? The staffers hadn't done it on purpose. It was just there's the audio visual equipment in the Senate isn't the highest quality, or it's not meant for broadcast TV. It's meant for closed circuit in the Capitol and for live streaming. It doesn't need to be the fancy.
Yeah, it doesn't even matter because you have history in the making going on. You're the lead lawyer in history, and you're running for city council in Houston. And that's what you come up with? I was just like, oh my Lord. So, but okay, fine, evidence being evidence, this, that, and the other thing. So they originally went after the whistleblowers and tried to make them into these, bad Republican, disloyal, I don't care for this word because it's misused here, but rhinos, but disloyal. And with every one of them, Paxton's team was like, well, you didn't go to the FBI with evidence, and so what were you doing? And it's like, even they were going as witnesses with concerns. They are coming forward and saying, look, this is what we've seen, this is what we've experienced, and it was basically an initial meeting. They went to report what they were seeing.
Yeah, you don't, like, whenever I call 911 to report a crime, I don't have to swear on the Bible, and but you don't. Whenever you're the witness, you just saw something happen. That's what you report what you've seen.
Yeah, and so and I've been listening to this, and some of it's really like they get down in the weeds with it, and particularly so from Paxton's side, they're going way into the weeds, and it's a little bit difficult to listen to and understand. And then the House impeachment team comes up and they're like, so, and they make it as simple as the sky is blue. Is that what you wrote? And yes, that's what I wrote. I mean, so it's really interesting from a people watching perspective. But I have to tell you, when the former chief of staff testified that, and I'm not quoting her, but effectively what she said was what was in my head. I don't care if you had an affair. It's not my business what you do in your personal life between you, your wife, and whatever. But when you start using state resources to further your personal endeavors, we'll leave it at that, endeavors, then it becomes my business. And that's pretty much what she said. She said not only did it affect the office staff and morale, but, state resources were used, and it was problematic. And I thought, if that's true, done. He's like, for me, if that's so, then he's done.
Yeah, they're hammering those latter articles a little hard right now. It was interesting at the very beginning. They had all the motions. We kind of skipped over the motions to dismiss. There were 20 some odd motions that they had to vote on, and the kind of baseline vote was 22-8 for whether or not they wanted to go to trial. But on a number of the motions, the larger motions, it was closer to 24-6. It was 24-6, and then there were some where it was 20-10. So that's one interesting aspect, because that means that's kind of where we start with where the likely vote is going to be at the end. I don't know if they'll peel off any of those 6, and I don't know if any of the other, any people who voted for all of the impeachment articles will peel away, which means Paxton needs the people who were kind of on the fence to all break their way. And at this point, I don't think they've done that to insert that enough reasonable doubt. There's a few reasons why, mostly because I think that if you look at it, the articles of impeachment were done in such a way, and the reason why this has happened now is because if you just look at the whistleblower suit, right? The crime and the illegality came from the violation of the whistleblower suit. It did not matter if the whistleblowers were wrong, right? It doesn't matter if they were correct or not. It doesn't matter if the FBI never charges Ken Paxton or not, because the whistleblower statute doesn't make that differentiation. The whistleblower statute wants people to be able to go to law enforcement, go to the AG's office, go to the FBI. They want to make sure that if somebody suspects wrongdoing and has a good faith cause, that we root that out sooner rather than later. And the problem for Paxton is the way he reacted by firing 4 of them was itself illegal. Whether he was in the right beforehand or not, he fired them in a way in which was illegal. The way in which he did it was illegal. They have whistleblower protections. That's why we have those laws specifically for state employees to be able to make the kind of allegations against them so that it can be done through the correct thing. And that itself is the problematic part. So Busby and the defense team are trying to make the case where they're all making it all about whether Ken Paxton had done or not, because that's one of the charges, and that makes sense. But they haven't really addressed anything at all on whether or not it was appropriate for Ken Paxton to do that firing. And it's really hard to make the case that Ken Paxton was correct when he was willing to pay $3.3 million to those folks for him to go away. Now, in that thing, he would have admitted to no wrongdoing. But $3.3 million of no wrongdoing and then not testifying to any of these effects of, oh, it would save money or any of this other stuff, just ignoring it completely from the legislature when the legislative committees said, hey, we want to talk about this, that's a problem. Like, that's where the big problem comes in on that strain of impeachment articles.
Yeah. And I think the important thing is to underline this. These whistleblowers are not undereducated or
they're very well educated
or willy-nilly, or they are extremely intelligent, articulate people. So if they say, I have a good faith belief, whether it's true or not, my eyebrows going up, going, okay, I wonder what the FBI is going to do about this. And of course, these court cases take forever. So, also, can we just talk about for a second, Ken Paxton showed up the first day, he pled not guilty, and we haven't seen him.
Yeah, I looked for him. I looked for him in Ketchikan, Alaska. Well, I might be mispronouncing that. There was a famous red light district from the up until the 1950s called Creek Street. They have a lot of these old brothels up there, and with some funny signs. And one of which is, if you can't find your husband, he's inside, which I thought was appropriate in Ketchikan, Alaska, to during the trial. I looked for him, didn't go inside. Just wanted to. I peeked in, didn't see him. That was the funniest thing I came up with. I did on Twitter or X. I had a kind of a string of tweets which were kind of me looking for Ken Paxton, but it was more just an excuse for me to post my vacation photos. That was the whole. But
if you want to see those photos, you absolutely should be following Garrett Fultz on Twitter. It was
GW Fultz at GW Fultz FULCE
at GWFULCE.
That's right. But Paxton showing up for the motions and then leaving and subjecting his wife to having to hear nonstop about all of his criminality, alleged criminality, and then I guess we're still calling it an alleged affair in public, where you have people just staring at her all day, and you don't even have the balls to sit next there and listen to it. Now, I understand the defense strategy portion of this, right? Like, if you don't have to have your client next to you to like react to all the different stuff and have to sit there for a few weeks where you don't. I mean, just look at famous cases. Like, I get the strategy portion of it, but the optics of it when your wife is constitutionally mandated to be there. God, you look awful. I mean, that's a miserable situation to be in. I feel bad for her.
Senator Angela Paxton is literally the embodiment of Loretta Lynn's song.
Yeah.
Stand by your man. And she really is. And you know what? More power to her. Okay? Because I got to tell you, if my husband were a politician, the highest lawyer in Texas, the chief law enforcement officer. chief law enforcement officer for the entire great state of Texas.
That hates law enforcement.
And clearly. And he went out and had an affair, and it was all over the news. She is a better woman than I am. God bless her soul, because to stand up and shoulders back and weather this storm from just her marriage point of view, rock on, girlfriend. You have got some really strong, you've got a strong back. And whether he's guilty or not, I mean, there really is no doubt at this point that he did have an affair. The question is, did he use state resources in pursuit of that affair?
Right.
Did he, and then the whole Nate Paul thing. So either one of those, if there is so much as, an inkling of evidence on either one of those, he's out of here. And I don't know. I mean, I'm waiting for them to say. I mean, the chief of staff said he used state resources, but I missed, and it could be that I had gotten up and I just missed it, but I did not hear her say what those state resources were.
So that's kind of where we're at with that. Where we're at now. They have about, if I'm doing my back of the envelope math right, they each have about 10 hours of testimony left. It's very likely that by the end of this week we'll be through testimony, but there's very high likelihood that we don't have the defense just says, argues that the prosecution didn't make its case, and they just go straight to whatever else, and they don't have anyone to call. Ken Paxton's not going
certainly
out.
Doesn't look good if you get up there and plead the fifth, regardless of what your reasons are. It never looks good. So
No. And this is an interesting part about this case, is that the jurors were able to see the complaint when it came out, were able to see the exhibits and everything. Typically, jurors can't see that type of information. They're political animals if they get elected to the Texas Senate. They know their constituency. They know, in this case, what's right and what's been proven, what has been proven. And you have all these arguments from this cohort on the right, which is just being led by the state party, and these groups backed by these West Texas billionaires that are just being obnoxious in the points they're making. They are coming out, and I've said on my piece on them quite a few times. And I will say this: there are a number of folks who call these folks out as grifters, which kind of has the connotation of being a con folks. I don't think that these people are grifters. I think they just have vested business interests in perpetuating anger. So I do want to say that I don't think they're grifters. I just think they're assholes.
Well, right. Yeah. Grifting is so far down. And speaking of political, the last thing I want to talk about today, and I forgot to mention it to you before we started the show. So Patrick Svitek, who I follow on Twitter, and is covering this case quite well. And you can find him at Patrick Svitek. Put up a new mailer that went out today, or in the last couple of days, I should say. And apparently, Matt Rinaldi, who's the Texas GOP chair, doesn't represent all Republicans. He only represents the Republicans that he likes. Because here's the mailer that went out. The Republican Party of Texas stands with Ken Paxton because he stands with us. The Republican Party of Texas stands with Ken Paxton and the millions of voters who helped him soundly defeat his Democrat opponent last November. Now Democrats unhappy with Paxton's lawsuits questioning the 2020 election results are teaming with liberal Republicans. And again, the whistleblowers are all Federalists. So, oh my God. To undo the decision of Texas voters and remove him from office, and then we can't let that happen. And then they've got bullet points on the back. Ken Paxton is one of the most conservative attorney generals in America. Well, that's why the whistleblowers worked for him. So it goes on. But it really aggravates me that he's taking sides in this. He has no business doing that. Let it play itself out. If you want to support him on your own time, but you're not representing all the Republicans. and that's your job. That is your job.
If you absolutely, it's your job to defend the party. And when the party is itself in disagreement, it is your job to shut up and let the party decide it. And Rinaldi does not seem to have that. The thing is, Rinaldi was a very hardline Freedom Caucus guy in the state house, but he was in the Dallas County, and he got swept out in 2018 because he didn't do the legwork to actually stay representative. And a lot of our good conservative folks got swept out in that election. We lost a lot of members because they hadn't done the work to win the district. They just did the work in the primary. And Rinaldi just keeps focusing on winning the primary, quote unquote, and doesn't seem to understand that we have to win general elections.
And not every county is ruby red. Some are red, some are pink, some are purple.
You think he'd be aware of that, being a former representative from Dallas County, but he doesn't seem to appreciate it. You can be a rock-ribbed Republican, and you can win a district that is R+1, D+1, but you have to do the full job of being a member of the House well. You have to go to the Rotary Club. You have to go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings. You have to go to all these local service organizations. You have to go to the local festivals. You have to go to whatever the festivals are and be there and be present and talk. And make sure people know that they can call your office and that you can help them and that you will help them, and then that help comes when they have an issue with the state. If there is an issue where somebody has a deadbeat parent in their life and they need to get child support, they need to know that they can come to their state representative, and that person will direct them how to actually get those resources and how to help them. If you're having an issue with the DMV or an issue with any state property taxes, or well, maybe not property taxes, that might be more of a county level thing, but there are any total number of things that are state agency related where you need to go talk to your representative and have that person do the casework to get that issue resolved. You have to do the full job of being a representative, and half the job is that, and the other half is voting in Austin. And we only focus on the voting portion. We don't focus on these portions of helping people where they're at. And if we want to win elections in marginal districts, we have to be good at everything.
I agree. I absolutely agree. And for Matt Rinaldi to be choosing sides, I feel like he's not representing me. And you don't have the right to call yourself chair and take sides for what amounts to Republican on Republican crime. I mean, you don't. Shut up, sit down, wait and see what happens. And then, if Paxton prevails, then get out there and, bang the drums and, send the mailers and this and that thing. But you're spending donors' money on mailers. And I didn't get one, so it's obviously only to certain districts. But which is smart because you don't want to spend all the money, but you don't have the right. You are there to represent all shades of red. That's it.
I'll say this: the data operation that these folks are using is poor. For one, I'm not considered a 4-4 or 3-4 Republican. Which is to say or 3-3 Republican, because my voter record isn't complete because some of the last few election cycles I was in Virginia. So my voter file didn't follow me. And it can be reconciled, and there are some people who have good data operations which have me appropriately rated. We have a ton of folks in this party who have moved here from out of state that are completely ignored by the data of these folks, like you, like me, because because I was in Virginia for 4 years.
Yep.
Voting years, I think 5 years. And, I should be considered a much more highly rated Republican when you look at my voter file. Even if you look at my voter file in Texas, it doesn't have the stuff that from 2008 to 2014 when I lived here, because my voter number changed because I was gone long enough. So they have bad data. They have data that they've pulled clearly, and I can say this, I won't say how I know this, but knowing how when certain people have moved and where they were registered, and then now where it's being mailed to, they have the current address of voters, but they have them pegged to the wrong districts. And it's still and stuff in certain because it's candidate specific, that's being mailed to the wrong people who no longer live in the district.
Right. I
think that there's just a level of incompetence with these folks where I really wish that, listen, if they want to be merchants of anger, and that's just really that they're passionate, that's what they want to do in their life, I don't know why they focus only on Republicans. I think they should be focusing on Democrats and trying to get some of their candidates elected in marginal districts. They just know that it's hard. They don't want to do the hard work. And they would rather just yell on Twitter into the void or put out bullshit.
But that's how we'll end up losing seats in the long run. Maybe not this election.
That's how we've lost seats in the long run. We should have a few more seats.
We had a net gain in the last election. But I'm telling you,
we should have more.
Yeah. Coming from a deep blue state that has a veto-proof majority in both houses, I mean, it wouldn't matter. Even though the House doesn't, they have nothing to do with the vetoes. It's because they're willing to do the work. I mean, also, it's government town there. But if you aren't willing to do the work, then what are you doing being chair? What are you doing? So I have no patience for this. But anyway.
I don't know. I'm waiting. I'm praying that we get a good candidate to challenge Rinaldi for the chairmanship. He was unopposed, or I think he was virtually unopposed in 2022. And was reelected by affirmation. If that's the case again, I just don't see the current Republican Party of Texas is not a vehicle that can be used for much of anything other than a clown car. It's bad. It's so bad.
Yeah, they need to fix it.
It's just so frustrating.
Somebody needs to grow a pair. All right, so that's about all we have for you for this week because, it's all Paxton all the time. And yes, I have other things I'd like to talk about, but we want you guys to be able to do whatever it is you're doing to keep up with the trial without, sucking up too much of your time. But we wanted to give you our opinions and what we've seen and what we've noticed and, give you something to think about. Let us know what you think. What did you like? Do you hate what we're saying? Let us know. You 1,000 ways to get in touch with us. Really happy to have you back, Garrett. It was quite a challenge without you. But really happy to have you back. Really glad you got to go on vacation. One of these days, I'll get to go on that kind of vacation. And anyway, thank you all very much for tuning in one more time, and we will see you all next Wednesday.
Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Seeing Red podcast. It's always Texas politics and beyond. We present the facts and opinions. The Seeing Red podcast with your host, Andi Turner and Garrett Fools. Thank you, and tune in next week. And please do us a favor. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode.